Hi, this is Shay with Trucks to Sales, here today doing a video on dump truck body maintenance. So what's all involved with that, including the hydraulic system, the hydraulic rams, the electric tarp system, the high lift tailgate system, the latch system, the bed vibrators, air and electric bed vibrators, as well as a little lift axle maintenance bonus here at the end of the video. We got quite a few of these maintenance videos coming up. We have also how to get your engine to last 1,000,000 miles. So you definitely want to check out that one, as well as maintaining a DEF and DPF system. So first thing we're going to talk about here today is the greasing of the dump truck body. So the first point here that needs the most grease is the rear hinge. So on these rear hinge assemblies, there's a grease fitting on both sides, on the passenger and driver side of the dump body, and we'd recommend that you grease those once a month. And all these recommendations are based on 5 dumps a day, 5 days a week. So if you're on a job site where you're dumping 20 times a day, something like that, might need to grease some of this stuff a little more. And next we have the high lift tailgates right here. So nice thing about these Hall Lane Manufacturing dump bodies is they're just super low maintenance. There's no grease points for the tailgate latches or the high lift tailgate systems. So there's not really any maintenance that's involved with that. It is possible for these little pins up here, these 2-inch solid rods, to wear out. It might be 10+ years, but that is a wear point on this that does not need grease. And we have those for sale for under $10, these 2-inch pins, but like I said, no one's really bought one because they just last so long. But that's actually a softer metal than the hinge arm itself. So the pin is softer metal, so that pin is what's going to get wore out and need to be replaced, but a long time in the future. So you see other dump truck body companies, they might put a bearing up there or something like that that needs grease, and those little bearings, all that stuff gets destroyed a lot quicker than a 2-inch solid bar. So there's just not really any maintenance involved with this. There are these pins. So there's a pin like this. Let me see if I can show you here on this round body. We got a few pins, these readily available little pins here that you can pretty much get anywhere, or you can give us a call and we can send them to you. So those pins could possibly wear out over time as well, but again, they don't require any grease or any maintenance. So any of this latch system on these Hall Lane Manufacturing dump bodies, there's no grease points for any of the latches. And again, you can see there's a bolt here. So this bolt, you know, many years in the future could become worn and you could replace that bolt. So that's just stuff that's going to be lasting a really long time, that doesn't need any grease, something like that. Sometimes when you add grease to those things, it can collect dirt and wear it out quicker. So that's actually something that you do not want to grease. So you don't want to be greasing all of these points, this bushing, these high lift tailgate cylinders, stuff like that, because it can actually add dirt and create friction and wear the stuff out a little bit sooner. So that kind of covers the back of the dump truck body there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we'll come over here to the front of the dump truck body now. So this outside hoist, you want to grease the top and the bottom basically on a every other month basis. Again, that's dumping, you know, the 5 loads a day, 5 times a week. On this inside hoist though, the bottom you want to grease every other month, and the top you can actually grease about every 6 months. As you can see here on these Hiva hoists, there's a bearing in the top of the hoist which allows it to rotate so there isn't a bunch of friction happening. So you don't have to grease this very often. You can see the door here. You just open that cover inside the dump body and there's just a single grease fitting in there, and you could grease that once every 6 months. So you don't have to be opening that door all the time, but that's what we would recommend. So when it comes to these hydraulic systems, there isn't a lot of maintenance as well on these. On all our hydraulic systems, we have a valve on there which at the bottom of the tank, which helps you to change the hydraulic oil. on there, and you can see this one has the tipping valve on the pump, which we talk about all that stuff in our other PTO video. But basically these systems don't require any maintenance except for changing the hydraulic oil. We'd recommend you do that the first year. So after 1 year, you change the hydraulic oil, and then after that, every other year, you want to change the hydraulic oil. And this doesn't need to be special hydraulic oil. It can just be regular tractor fluid. You don't need to really get some fancy stuff unless you're in a cold weather environment. You might get one that's more formulated for extreme cold weather, but for the most part, just a basic hydraulic fluid will do. Some dump body companies want to put filters on this, on the hydraulic systems, but this is a really slow flowing system. So the hydraulic oil isn't going through there at high speeds, and it doesn't really get dirty for the most part. So we would definitely not recommend adding a hydraulic filter to these systems. You can add a hydraulic filter, but it's just extra maintenance that isn't really necessary for such a low speed, low flow hydraulic system. And one of the things you don't want to do is mix, you know, different types of hydraulic fluid. You could possibly have some foaming. Next, on to the bed vibrators. So this particular truck has dual air vibrators on it, as you can see right there. So the air ones require more maintenance than the electric ones. The electric ones, you might replace the fuses on them, you know, every 5 years, something like that, or the breakers, just to make sure that those aren't going out on you while you're on a job site or something like that, is what we'd recommend as far as the electric ones go. But this air one has oil in it, so you need to be filling this little tank here with oil every 6 months. There's also a little filter in here as well that can be placed, so when you're adding oil, you could check that filter as well. So these air ones have more maintenance to them than the electrical ones, so you just got to make sure you're keeping an eye on that fluid and not running it dry. So the electric tarp system, that also requires pretty much no maintenance. These tarp motors do wear out over time. Main thing with the tarp motor is keeping dirt out of there. You could probably blow the motor out if there's a bunch of dust in there. You know, you're working on a bunch of dirty job sites, just go ahead and take an air gun up to that thing and blow it all out. Same thing with the fuses there. You could clean those out, make sure they're not getting a bunch of dirt in there. You could go ahead and replace the relay at around the 5-year mark, something like that. Sometimes those relays start to get overly sensitive, so that's something that you could possibly replace to make sure you don't have any problems once you start getting to that 5-year mark. Lastly, we have lift axle maintenance here. So we've got a whole bunch of lift axles on this truck. So we're not really covering the brakes today in this video, but we are going to cover the suspensions and the valves. So you can see probably the number one things that happens to all these different lift axle suspensions is these bolts that are on these arms here. You can see these 4 bolts, those come loose. So those don't require any grease or anything like that, but every time you get your oil changed, every 10,000 miles or less, you want to check those, and you can put double nuts on it. You can see this one just has a single nut, but you can put 2 nuts on all of these things to keep them from backing out. That's definitely going to make it a lot harder for those to come loose, but we see a lot of cases here in our shop where those bolts come loose, the bolt falls out, and the suspension gets all tore up because this bag's putting, you know, 5,000 pounds of force down, and when that bolt's missing or coming loose, it can really twist everything up and make for more parts needing to be replaced. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Pretty much most of these lift axle suspensions don't require any grease or anything like that. Of course, the brake systems require some grease, but the lift axle systems, for the most part, none of them really have grease fittings on it. So these suspensions just go up and down, and on a lot of these, there's this little plastic bushing in here, so that could get tore up. As long as it's not missing, that's okay. But there's an inner bushing in most of these axles, where that might need to be replaced every 3 to 6 years, depending on, you know, how much off-roading you're doing and how much twisting this axle is taking. So that's something to keep an eye on. You can kind of see if that's starting to get loose, or just replace it preemptively with age. And like I said, if you're doing a lot of off-roading, more on the 3-year Endicide with those bushings that are inside there. And then the other thing that's kind of important here are these valves. You know, there's all these different air valves for opening and closing the bags. There's actually air valve oil that you can put in the air lines that you should be doing anyway on your truck. A lot of people never do that. And then you wonder why these valves that can be, you know, $100, $200, $300 are going bad, is because they've just never been lubricated their whole life. So there's a few drops of oil where you can put that in these air lines and it'll lubricate these different valves that are on these lift axle suspension. There's another valve right there. These ones are pretty inexpensive, but same thing, just a few drops of oil, you know, once every 6 months can definitely prolong the life of these valves. Most people on their trucks, they never oil the valves, and then you're getting sticking valves, you're getting all these different problems. You can see even for just the regular airbag suspension, there's all these valves as well. So we're doing some other videos on other maintenance aspects of the trucks here, so definitely watch out for those. We even got one, how to make your engine last 1,000,000 miles, coming down the pipeline here, and maintaining the DEF system and maintaining all kinds of different stuff on these trucks. We're definitely here to help you all and keep you on the road. This is Shay with Trucks to Sales. Thank you for viewing, and please visit our website at www.truckstosales for more information. Thank you.